Okay. We are on the last segment of Walk Through the Bible, Old Testament. Now, because we have a newbie here, that's okay. It's not your fault. You've had some good reasons, working up with the children and being with family and all that. So what Walk Through the Bible is something that was developed in the 70s. So if it seems aged, whatever. And it is a way to, in a short period of time, here's the story of the entire Old Testament. What I have on the half, did you get a half sheet? Okay, what's on the half sheet are all the things that are part of it. And again, just so everybody can remember. And I'm also going to try to step back this time. Last week, and I don't know if anybody watched it, wasn't here last week, I kept doing this, and getting out of the camera view. So I kind of put it further that way and stuff. So, but what I'm giving you is the hangers that without the clothes. That Abraham, that's all you get. You just get the one name, Abraham, and all the stories that go with Abraham. That's the hook, and then all the stories you've heard about Abraham are attached. This is just so that we can go boom, 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 right through. I've not timed myself. Maybe we could do it at the end of going through it all. And to see, we're talking 8 minutes, and you go through the whole entire Old Testament. Now, again, just doing it, just being able to, what I like to do is kind of talk it out and fill in the gaps other than just creation, fall, flood, nations, and there's motions. So that's why. That's why they said you're going to have to be limbered up to do all that. So anyway, so here's a couple areas that I wanted us to review before we go over it all. Okay? There are certain things that it's not so much about the motions, but it's almost like getting in the rhythm. Okay? Because when we went through the divided kingdom that lasted 400 years, okay, that every time we do that, there's years. That's, and how long or something like that. There's also a map behind me. Do you see it? And there's a map encompassing this whole floor, So, yeah, you got it. All righty. So we'll draw it out later. So,
you're in the Mediterranean, just so you know.
Yeah, you're in the Mediterranean Sea. So, but there's certain things that it's not so much the motions that lead into it, it's more of a rhythm. When we talked about the divided nations, which lasted 400 years, we broke it down between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, okay, by just saying there's north, there's south, this is Israel, that's Judah. There were 19 good kings. There were 19 kings. There were 20 kings. There were 0 good kings. There were 8 good kings. Now, that I explained it out, but this is it. Divided kingdom, 400 years, north, south, Israel, Judah, 1920, 0, 8. And so we're going to repeat that a couple times and say it out loud. So now, on your sheet, I'm just doing a couple places. We are right here. Okay, so you can see it. So here we go. So when we end up going through it, you already kind of have reminded yourself. So here we go. We're going to go from the divided kingdom, which is 4,000 years ago. North, south, Israel, Judah, 1920, 0, 8. All right, wonderful. Great job. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because that's the Jordan River. You're in the Mediterranean Sea. This is Israel, and this is the northern kingdom. And where Faye is where Judah is, the southern kingdom. So that's why I'm pointing over here. I'm glad we have a new person here when we're ending this. So, see what you've missed? So, now another part I want us to review. Okay, it's on the first side of the page. But those who've been here, you don't need this and all this. There's a section where it's more about rhyming. Okay, so it's hard for me to pick it up somewhere in the middle But let me see. There it is. Okay, right after when they go to no, Mount Sinai, you know, where they got the law and the tabernacle. From that point on, there's rhyme, you know, and you go through. So remember, it's Levites and priests, offerings and feasts. See, feast. Yeah, so Levites and priests, offerings and feasts. Then we have counting the faces, Kadesh, oasis. You have faces, oasis, okay? Then you have 12 spies, wanders, dies. Okay, I just want to do that part because there's a flow, okay? So let's do that a couple times. Again, then we're going to do a small review, then a full review. Then we'll do new stuff. Okay, so going back to Mount Sinai, where he gave the law, also the tabernacle, Levites and priests, offerings and feasts, counting the faces, Kadesh, oasis, 12 spies, wanders, dies. Okay, so that just I just want to put that back in your brain just a little bit. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do what we learned last week. What we learned last week. I have to look. Where were we last week? So we're starting at the end description of the book of Judges. Okay. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes except Ruth. Now, I'm pointing over at Riley because that's where the city of Moab is. Okay? Alrighty? So, except for Ruth and Samuel. Now, what did Samuel bring together? A united kingdom. And we're going to crown 3. Oh, and that lasted 120 years, 40 for each one. And we're going to crown these kings. We have Saul, who had no heart for God. Again, I'm adding the for God, so you understand. And then we had David, who had a whole heart for God. And then we have Solomon, who had a heart for God. And that led to the divided kingdom. Oh, 400 years. Thank you, Wanda. 400 years. North, South, Israel, Judah, 1920, 08. Prophets speak. Shape up or ship out. And I'm pointing back here because that's where we're going to go tonight. But before we do that, we're going to do a little bit more review. All right? We're going to start, and I'm doing this on purpose because, the more if you always start from the beginning, you really know the beginning well. So we're going to go back to, where did I mark it? Well, we're going to start at the Mount Sinai part, but we're going to go all the way to where we're going. All righty? So here we go. Mount Sinai. God gave the law, the tabernacle, Levites and priests, offerings and feasts, counting the faces, Kadesh, oasis, 12 spies, wanders, dies. Now, I'm looking down. Wanders, dies. Thank you. Moab, Moses, you got to say it that way. Moses, second law, dies. That's how I got confused with him dying. Okay, so dies. Come up to a salute. Joshua, Jordan River, Jericho. Yes, thank you. My brain is not there. I got to get into rhythm. So, divides, conquers, starting in the south, in the north, divides, settles into 12 tribes. Then we have Judges, 400 years. 3 examples. Deborah, Gideon, Samson. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes except Ruth and Samuel. United kingdom, 120 years. Saul, no heart. David, whole heart, Solomon, half heart, divided kingdom, 400 years, north, south, Israel, Judah, 1920, 08. Prophets speak, shape up or ship out. Okay. Can we do it from the beginning?
Why, sure.
All righty. We're doing a lot of review anyway, just because we want to confuse her more. So, here we go. From the beginning to the almost end. And then we're going to continue. So, here we go. Creation, fall, flood, nations, 4,000 years ago. This is our map back here. Persian Gulf. Put your finger in it. What do you taste? That is S-A-R. Sarah, Abraham, Lot, Terah. The Tigris, Euphrates, Haran, Terah dies. Then they moved. Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Israel, Ishmael, Isaac, Esau, Jacob, Joseph, Egypt, Jews, Egypt, 400 years, bondage, Moses, let my people go. No. 10 plagues, Passover, Red Sea, Mount Sinai, law, tabernacles, Levites and priests, offerings and feasts, counting the faces, Kadesh, oasis, 12 spies, wanders, dies. Moab, thank you, Moab. Moses, second law, dies. Joshua, Jordan River, Jericho, Jericho, divide, conquers, south, north, divides, settles, 12 tribes. Judges, 400 years, Deborah, Gideon, Samson. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes except Ruth and Samuel. United Kingdom, 120 years. Saul, no heart. David, whole heart. Solomon, half heart. Divided kingdom, 400 years. North, south, Israel, Judah, 1920, 08. Prophets speak, shape up, or ship out. All right, let's do some new stuff. All right, so.
You know that? Okay.
All right, now realize that was 5 weeks worth. Okay, so here we go. So, the prophets that God used, and this is, we're not done with this when we're finished because there's other parts of the Old Testament that aren't part of the storyline, but they're definitely part. And next week we're going to kind of insert those, like when the prophets came, and you know, kind of timeline who they spoke, and like what about Psalms, what about Proverbs, all that stuff. So we'll kind of insert those in next week. Now, so the last thing is that the prophets are like, you know, shape up or ship out. I'm pointing back to our original map, the original map which had and there's probably Babylon around here, and you know, there's that Persian Gulf again. It's still salty. But when you think about the world powers back then, we're going to talk about Assyria. You know, guess where Assyria was? Right here. Well, okay. Well, then you have Babylon. Where was Babylon? Right here. It kind of replaced it. I mean, there's, you know, the lines were a little bit different, but basically. Then you had Persia come. Well, guess where Persia was? Right here. Now, it was also here, and it was down here and all that. But you know, so we keep pointing over here, but over time, this changes and stuff like that. And so, we're going to talk about, the prophet spoke and said, shape up or ship out. Well, guess what? They didn't shape up. After prophet, both the northern tribe of Israel and the southern tribe. So first, the northern tribe of Israel, God sent the nation, the kingdom, world power of Assyria, and they came and took Israel and scattered them. Now, there's a couple blanks there, right? All right. I never have any of the notes in front of me, so I don't look at my notes and stuff like that. So we have Assyria, Israel scatters. Now, fill those blanks in, because I want you to review. If I might help if I have that, and I know. Okay, definitely here's your blank. All right. So now I'm going to explain what happens to the next group. And then you'll see the difference. The next group is Babylon, Judah, exiles. Do you see the difference? When Assyria came and they conquered a group of people, what they did is scattered them. We'll send some of them here and there all over their kingdom so they wouldn't be united. So they would lose who they were. And so that was their strategy, and so they would never unite and maybe go against them. Babylon treated their conquees, whatever you want to call them, people they conquered, they treated them differently. They kept them together. And so when Babylon came, they took Judah and they stayed together, and so they maintained their identity. In this time, this is when the synagogues developed. Because one of the things that happened when Babylon came and conquered them, they destroyed the temple. How do you do your religion that's centered on temple sacrifices? And so this was the development of the synagogue, which we find out later in the New Testament, stuff like that. Because they were keeping the teachings, and stuff like that going on. So you have Assyria, Israel scatters, Babylon, Judah exiles. Did you write the blank exiles?
Yes, sir.
All right, make sure you got the exiles. Now there's a specific period of time there. 70 years. That was prophesied to be that, and they were counting the days, stuff like that. Now, there were actually 3 separate events of exile. Okay? There was a time that the first group, when Nebuchadnezzar came and conquered that area, he took like the young men and brought a lot of them back. Because they were more pliable in their mind. They were smarter, just Riley there. He's sharp and stuff like that. And pliable. And we could shape them into our culture. And they could be the go-betweens, us and the others. And this is where Daniel and his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that's where there it is. But again, we'll talk more about that next week when we talk about the prophets. But that's that group. Well, then it talks about there's a second group of exile, and that's when Nebuchadnezzar came back again. And there was a new king. He'd only been there 3 months and was already rebelling. And so he came, took him to Babylon, as well as 10,000 Judeans in the exile. This is when Ezekiel, the prophet, was taken. Mike and Alan, we were talking about that the other night. It wasn't the first one. It was the second one that Ezekiel was taken. And then there was a third one. Because he still left some people there. And as long as you're all good, well, guess what? They didn't stay good. God wasn't finished judging them. And so they came back again. And not only did they exile more of the Judeans, they also knocked down the walls and burnt the temple. So there was no temple anymore. So this is the two conquering events, because the prophets spoke, shape up or ship out, and you have Assyria, Israel scatters, Babylon or Babylon, I'm going to hear different. It's okay. Judah, exile, 70 years. Okay, what happened after 70 years? Persia, whole new other kingdom. Persia, Judah returns. So he just calmly, nicely set them back in place, you know. It was a nice, calm event, right? Wrong. It actually, just like there were 3 takeaways, there were 3 comebacks. Okay? Where you have 3 people, and you're about to know their names and what they did, that God used 3 returns plus somebody else to shape this period of time. The first person who returned, his name was Zerubbabel. He was actually in the king's line, lineage, and stuff like that. And so he was the leader. And so he led the first group coming from Babylon. So let's take him and the group with him, and let's bring them back. And what was the impact that he had? The temple. God used him to rebuild the temple. So we have Zerubbabel, temple. The next person mentioned, let's go back over here, Esther. Well, she didn't go back. She's queen. Okay? Now again, that's the whole book of Esther right there. You know? So Esther, queen. Don't bring her back to Israel. Queen. All right? Then you have Ezra. And so we're bringing him back. He built up the people. He was a priest. He taught them the law of how to follow the law, to encourage them to follow the law. And so we have Ezra, people. And then the last to return is Nehemiah, walls. And God used him to rebuild the walls and stuff. So let's go through all of those. So, after they're all, in exile for 70 years, you have Zerubbabel. There it is. Making Mount Sinai. No. Temple. Thank you. Temple. Esther. Queen. Ezra. People. Nehemiah. Walls. 400 years. Silence. No more prophecies. I won't say there weren't miracles. I won't say God was not doing anything. But the next thing that God came to speak about, Christ. Now, let's just go over tonight's. And then I have a few more details, because some things we miss when we read the Bible. Okay? So here we go. We're starting. Prophets speak, shape up or ship out. Assyria, Israel scatters. Babylon, Judah exiles. 70 years. Persia, Judah returns. Zerubbabel, temple. Esther, queen. Ezra, people. Nehemiah, walls. 400 years, silence, Christ. All right. Now, when we read the Bible, and we read events like that, and like I talked about the 3 times that they came and exiled them, when you're reading it, it's 2 Kings chapter 24, 1, and then it's 2 Kings chapter 24, like 15 or something like that. Then it's 2 Kings chapter 25, 1. And when you're reading it, you're thinking, Oh, it's just a few years. So I wanted to give you perspective because when you read it, all you're hearing is, well, on the 9th year of so-and-so, for 3 years, and it just throws out, then it throws out another name, and then, So I had to write it down because I couldn't remember this, and this has nothing to do with what we've been doing. So you have, and I'm going to throw dates out, and again, it will do nothing for you, okay? But it was in 722 that Assyria came and took Israel, scattered, 722. That's okay. If you want to write it down, you can write it down. Well, then Babylon comes around, and the first exile with Daniel and friends was in 605, okay, BC.
That's over 100 years.
Well, it is. This is the difference between the northern tribe of Israel and Judah. We're just going to focus on Judah right now. So that's 605. In 597, that's when they come back and take Ezekiel. Listen, this is 15 verses later in the Bible. You're thinking, oh, yeah, next week they came. No, that was 8 years. And then you go to the time they come back and they destroy the temple in 586. 11 years later. Now, to get perspective, let's say we're living right after the temple is destroyed. You hear this guy crying over here. His name is Jeremiah, the weeping prophet. He's doing the Book of Lamentations right now, but that's next week. But so let's say it's 586, okay? But we're going to just say what our year is. It's 2023, which means the previous time that Babylon came and took a group of exiles was 2012. What's going on in 2012? Well, Obama was reelected in 2012. Sandy Hook shooting happened in 2012. And what all of y'all remember, that's when the first Avengers movie came out.
I knew there was something special.
So it was the first Hobbit movie too. But anyway, so just where were you? How long ago was like? Wow, that was long ago. Well, and if you need more perspective, how old were your children or grandchildren in 2012? Then you go, oh wow, that was a while ago. Well, again, what you read and it just seems like, oh, a couple days later they came back and got another group, stuff like that. So let's take it back to the difference between the last exile and the first exile. It's 2004. What happened in 2004? Let me ask you something. How many people have had or have a connection with Facebook? Most?
Look at you guys. Can I raise your
You
hand?
used to. I said or have had. Guess what? 2004, that's when it came out.
2004.
I mean, there's people now are going, wow, I can't remember life before Facebook, whatever. So,
2004, the Red Sox won the World Series.
I actually knew that, but I didn't think it was important enough to put. But anyway, George W. Bush was reelected, his second term. Remember the day after Christmas, the tsunami that wiped out the South Pacific, that area.
Wow.
All of that. Way back when, and stuff like that. So I just want to give you perspective. So when we say all we're doing on our thing, we're not even doing 3 times, but we're just saying, Babylon, Judah, exiles. Well, that was a period of 19 years of 3 waves. Now let me make it harder on you. Let's go to the returns. The return, from the first return that Zerubbabel brought people to the time that Nehemiah, the third return, came. Okay? So I'm not even going to give you the years because it's like, I'll give you the years later. So let's say, when Nehemiah returns with that third group, it's again, our year. It's 2023. Well, who's the guy before? That was Ezra. Well, that was 13 years ago. That was 2010. That's how much time passed between Ezra bringing his group and starting his ministry there. Well, before that, it was 25 years before that Esther became queen and saved the Jewish people, which would make it between the dates of 1988 when she became queen to 1995 when she saved the country from annihilation, and they celebrate Purim. So what were you doing in 1995? I got married.
I was in a car accident.
Yeah. Mine was better. Oh man, oh man. Now. Let me tell you again. So, if we're in Nehemiah's day, it's 2023, and Esther is 1988. When she starts stuff like that. Zerubbabel, when he came, it was 1932.
Was you around then, huh?
If I was, you were. But anyway, listen, I mean, in this room, we're going, okay, we've got to talk about our parents or grandparents, being around then. But just to let you know, and then it actually took from the time they started building, it took 20 years because there was a gap and stuff like that. So we can go, okay, 1952, but still we're going, that's before me, maybe not everybody in the room. But so just to give you an idea, when you read about these returns, and again, I'm just, it's in the book of, two of these events are in the book of Ezra. That's where you find Zerubbabel coming back, the first 6 chapters. And then you have him coming back, But meanwhile, there was the Queen Esther event. And then you have the book of Nehemiah. So just wanted to give you an idea of how all this fits. Because, when we look at the prophets speak, shape up or ship out, God meant business. And so he sent Assyria to Israel, scattered in 722, and then he took Babylon and they went to Judah and they exiled, and that took 70 years from the first exile till the return, which was with Persia. Sorry, forgot him. Judah returned, and then you had Zerubbabel built the temple, and then you had bring it back, Queen. Then you had Ezra built the people, and Nehemiah built the walls. And after Nehemiah, it was 415. Same time was the end of Malachi being written. 400 years, silence, Christ. Wow. Now, we're going to go over this again next week, and next year. We'll see how well you learn it. It's like, what are you doing? We're going to do this again next week. I got all time mixed up with her doing all that stuff, But just so that, but I do want us to go over it one more time from the top to the end. Now, I'm not going to throw in those extra, words that link them. We're just going to go straight through it. So is everybody ready? You got to start down here when there was nothing, okay? Because we have creation, fall, flood, nations, 4,000 years ago, Persian Gulf, Salt, Sarah, Abraham, Lot, Terah, Tigris, Euphrates, Haran, Terah dies. Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Israel, Ishmael, Isaac, Esau, Jacob, Joseph, Egypt, Jews, Egypt, 400 years, bondage, Moses, let my people go, No. 10 plagues, Passover, Red Sea, Mount Sinai, law, tabernacle, Levites and priests, offerings and feasts. Counting the faces, Kadesh, oasis. 12 spies, wanders, dies. Moab, Moses, second law, dies. Joshua, Jordan River, Jericho, divides, conquers, south, north, divides, settles, 12 tribes. Judges, 400 years. Deborah, Gideon, Samson. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes except Ruth and Samuel. United Kingdom, 120 years. Saul, no heart. David, whole heart. Solomon, half heart. Divided kingdom, 400 years. North, south, Israel, Judah, 1920, 08. Prophets speak, shape up or ship out. Assyria, Israel, scatters. Babylon, Judah, exiles. 70 years. Persia, Judah, returns. Zerubbabel, temple. Esther, queen. Ezra. I was going to Ezekiel now. Ezra, people. Nehemiah, walls. 400 years, silence, Christ. Now, that's a lot. We will go over it again next week so that it goes in a little bit more. But listen, that's why you have it on your little sheet. Once a day, go over it. Okay? And that'll help. It'll help clean. And again, Deborah, I would advise go back and, because each one of those, there's a lot of explanation filling in some of the clothing on the hangers that were set up of here's all the main, words, whatever, hangers. But what's the point? If you remember, this started by talking about we need to have the big picture of the whole word and how it ties together. This is a fun way of doing that. The Old Testament, there's tons of stories. Again, when we say Sarah, Abraham, well, man, that's half a book of Genesis. And there's so many stories and Hagar and all that other stuff going on. So it's not telling it all, but it's just putting into places so you kind of get a more of a timeline of what's going on. So you have a broad picture so that when you read something, you're going, I know where this fits. Daniel in the lion's den. Well, we're going to explain that again. Where does Daniel fit in? Well, you do know because not what we've done doing all this stuff, but that, that first exile, that's when Daniel was taken. That's when things started with him. So, anyway. All righty. Let's pray. And then, if you're in choir, you got 6 minutes. All right. Jesus, thank you so much for your word. And as we've been going through just the stories of the Old Testament, we pray that we'll be able to do more than just link it, that we could appreciate it, and that it's all pointing to what we ended with, Christ. That all the stories were about you fulfilling from Genesis chapter 3, the promise that you were going to take care, that you were going to redeem, that you would pay for our sin, and that you, Christ, would deal the fatal blow to our enemy. And so Jesus, help us as we piece it together, as we even move on and look at the New Testament and how that fits in all of this. Guide us, we pray, in your name. Amen. Amen. Now, with the New Testament, there is a walk through the Bible thing. It's a lot more confusing. I'm working on simplifying. I don't think we're even going to do motions and stuff like that, but just being able to walk through the storyline, and then where does Paul's letters, where does James's letter, where does all that fit in to that? But that's a couple weeks ahead from now. All right.